Hey everybody. Yeah, so last time I was refactoring, I'm going to be refactoring this time. I'll probably be refactoring the next couple of times. Basically, I'm trying to pull as much of the animation code out of the Three.js service and move it into the animation service. And then as soon as that's done, I want to do an upgrade and upgrade this to the latest version. Let me look at my packages. Package.json. Uh, so yeah, I'm currently on 17 and 18 is out. I'm not actually. I have no idea what's new in Angular 18 because like there's the like sort of the technical upgrading to Angular 18, and then there will be the spirit of upgrading to Angular 18, where like now you're doing things the Angular 18 way. If there's a different way of doing things. So like for example, when I went from Angular 16 to 17, I shifted away from like the capital I input outputs between um, child and parent binding to the new signals way. And then they probably have some stuff like that too. Um, Also, when I do that upgrade, I want to keep an eye on like anything that Angular might want to change, like in my JSON, one of my I think there's an Angular JSON file. Sometimes it'll like by default like disable things that are critical to future versions of Angular, and they'll sort of disable it, and then you don't realize, oh man, I'm not doing something the according to best practices. And why am I not doing it? Oh, because the JSON, this file told it to disable that requirement. There's a couple of files like that. Yeah, this tsconfig is another file where they'll quite often like in if you were to create a brand new version of brand new Angular 18 application, like ES module interop might be set to false in that one, but or source map or that would be, yeah, like no. This is a really good one. No property access from index signature is true. Now that could be false in the future, or they could add a new attribute, and that new attribute by default, let's say in the new Angular 18, would be true, but if you're doing an upgrade, they set it to false. And so you've kind of upgraded, but not really, because what's going to happen is, 4 or 5 iterations down, they totally stop supporting that, and you've like injected all this stuff that they're not going to support throughout your entire application. So that's something you have to watch out for. But anyways, yeah. So the upgrade. So I mean uh, moving stuff. I don't know why this. Let me hit save on that. Moving stuff uh, from the 3J animation stuff from 3JS to the animation service went really well. Animation service is bloated or has grown to a good, nice, healthy 170 lines of code. And then the 3JS service, I have no idea. What did I do in there? Oh, okay. This is because this got moved. Okay, so yeah, so I moved it and then I updated it and saved, and then I realized the 3JS service was in the wrong directory, so I moved it because I moved the 3JS service into this services directory. So, anyways, uh, this file has gone. This 3JS file has gone from um, 881 to 745 lines. I'm hoping that by the end of animation service will be like close to 600 lines of code in this, and then that all the stuff for animation will be moved over. I'm a little bit concerned that I won't be able to move over, and I really would like to uh, move over this animation callback. um, but this animation callback uses a lot of things, uh, tons and tons of stuff, and it's not really Maybe I can get it to where it just calls one function that's all living in the animation. See, it knows all the lights, knows all the meshes, knows all the scenes. Um, yeah, I suspect it's going to need to stay in 3JS service, but we won't know. I won't really know for sure until, yeah, it's going to need the renderer. I don't know if I want to create some big old function that accepts all of those things. Um, um, but like prune animation pairs should end up in there. Delete mesh shouldn't end up in there. Um, Set animation pairs should definitely end up in the animation thing, animation service. So that's that. As for animations, I'm just going to kind of give a quick rundown. If you're not familiar with 3JS, like I wasn't when I first started this project, um, so you would there's the probably the most beginning basic level thing to understand is that there are things called meshes, and there's various kinds of meshes. In this, I just sort of create a UI that's kind of sitting on top of that. So I'm just going to name this mesh. You can add names and all that. And then there's an X, Y, and Z position. So the X position is left and right. No, let's see. X position, I'm going to make this. So you know what? I'm going to go backwards a little bit. In here, there are three times of kinds of materials that I know of. There's a basic material, which it is you can add color. There's a thing called a normal material, which is your basic, fundamental. Most examples things are done in normal, and then there's one called a Fong material, which is uh, light. You can set the color and you can set the and you can set the material. So I'm going to make this a normal material, and then I'm going to move it along the x-axis. So I'm going to move it to like 3. So that's left and right. So I move that to 3. If I move it to -3, I move it to that. Then I'm going to move it back to 0. And now you can move it in the y position, and that's up and down. So that's 3 up, -3 down, and 0. And then the Z position is in and out. So just so you know, the camera is sitting at the 5Z position. So I'm going to move this thing to the 4Z position. And now it's right up on top of me. Now I'm going to move it to it was sitting at the 0. Now I'm going to move it to the -4. Now it's way back. And that's the basic fundamentals of the axis in 3JS by default. I believe there's a way you can actually change the axis. And then with these, there's multiple types of shapes. I've only implemented 2. One of them is cube and the other is sphere. So that's an example of a sphere. And then we went over the material types, and then there's you can animate them. And actually, animating, I don't think the way I'm doing it is a natural part of 3JS. It's more like you write code that tells it where to go. So in this example, I have this animated, and so I've created this animation view, and so this is the current X, this is the time, and I can pause it, and so some of this stuff, some of the code that does all this is Angular. Some of the code that does all this is JavaScript. Some of the code that does this is 3JS. And so this UI sort of brings all those in. So like I could change the X position to 0, and now it's not going to move along the X position anymore. So now we can go look and see what it's doing at the Y position. And so I'm going to make that so it's no longer moving along the Y position. So now we can look at the Z position and see what it's doing. So it's coming right at us. It's coming right at us. So let's make this like a -5. And then like we can make it like 6. And it'll go behind us. Or 7. And it goes through. And that's about it. Or that's a lot. That's kind of how the materials work and this animation works. Happy coding, everybody. Bye.